It might be hard to imagine, but at the start of the 1800s, Christmas holidays were hardly celebrated, or at least not how we know it today, with barely any businesses even considering it big enough to give their workers time off for the holidays. However, by the end of the century, Christmas had become the biggest annual celebration in the United Kingdom and become recognisable to how we celebrate today. The Victorian Christmas traditions that we all recognise, such as the decorated Christmas tree, Christmas crackers and the Christmas Day feast, have all become synonymous with the festivities we celebrate year on year. But where did these traditions come from? Why did the Victorians introduce them? And did Queen Victoria herself really play that large of a role in spreading the Christmas spirit? Well, as always, make sure to stick around because this short 7-minute documentary will cover all and more. And if you like this video and you're feeling in the Christmas spirit, please subscribe and let me know in the comments if there are any other topics you would like to see me cover. For thousands of years, people around the world have took part and celebrated winter festivals, even for years before the birth of Jesus Christ, and these were centred around the winter solstice. One of the earliest winter pagan festivals was celebrated by the Roman Empire before they adopted Christianity, and was known as Saturnalia, and was held to celebrate the Roman god of agriculture, Saturn. The pagan festivities in winter go even further back than that, but it was the Romans who, when Christianity became the dominant religion, decided to align it on the same day as Saturnalia. Although quite a few traditions that are associated with Christmas today came from pagan festivals, such as decking houses and halls with holly and other greenery and singing Christmas carols, it wasn't until the reign of Queen Victoria in Great Britain that Christmas took on the form of what we can recognise today. Even in America, Christmas wasn't celebrated as a national holiday until 1870. Before the reign of Queen Victoria began in Britain, nobody had even heard of Santa Claus or Christmas crackers at the dinner table. No cards were sent and barely anyone had holidays from work for the Christmas period. The change was mainly attributed to Queen Victoria herself, but it might have been her marriage to the German Prince Albert that saw the introduction of many of the prominent features of Christmas that we expect today. Albert promoted many of the traditions that were featured in the German Christmas celebrations to the royal family, which in turn would popularise and spread the traditions among the commons. For example, in 1848, a drawing of the royal family celebrating around a decorated Christmas tree was published, a tradition that was reminiscent of Albert's childhood experience of Christmas in Germany. Soon after, almost every home in Britain followed suit and decorated a tree with sweets, fruit, homemade decorations, and even candles, which doesn't sound very sensible to me, but I suppose they were pretty miserable in the Victorian times, so we'll let them pass on that one. Prince Albert and the royal family weren't just the only people who came up and invented the Christmas traditions in the Victorian age that we still celebrate today. In 1843, the British inventor Henry Cole commissioned an artist to design a card for Christmas, with the card featuring an illustration of a family sitting around a dinner table with a Christmas message, to be sold at the price of 1 shilling each. Now, 1 shilling was actually quite pricey by Victorian standards, so the idea did not immediately catch on, but eventually the trend grew as children, including Victoria's own children, were encouraged to make their own Christmas cards, which were then sent on to friends and relatives along with a nice little Christmas message inside. Of course, the Victorian era is known for increasing industrialisation, so eventually, as the trend grew even more, the process of creating cards became faster and the price became cheaper, with the cost of a card dropping to just half a penny. Thank you, capitalism. By the year 1880, the production of Christmas cards became highly lucrative, with over 11 million cards being produced that year alone. But even more Christmas traditions were invented in the Victorian age, with British sweet maker Tom Smith inventing a new way to sell sweets at Christmas. Inspired by a visit to Paris where he saw sweets such as bonbons packaged in paper wrapping with a twist at either end, Tom Smith came up with the idea of a Christmas cracker, which was initially a package filled with sweets that would be pulled apart at either end to release the sweets inside. It was later in the Victorian period that the sweets were then replaced with paper hats and small gifts to become the Christmas cracker that we recognise today. Even the act of giving gifts changed under the Victorians. While before, gifts were traditionally given on New Year's Eve, but as Christmas became more important, this was moved to Christmas Day. The gifts themselves also changed, with gifts having used to be rather modest presents such as nuts, fruits, sweets, and smaller handmade trinkets or ornaments. It was under the Victorians, along with the increasing industrialisation in Britain, that saw gifts become bigger, more expensive, shop brought, and eventually going on to becoming one of the central events of the Christmas festivities. You might not believe it, but even Santa Claus, arguably the most recognisable feature of Christmas, thanks to Coca-Cola, wasn't popularised until the Victorian era, with the legend of St. Nicholas becoming a placeholder for the Santa Claus we recognise today, with him eventually eventually being immortalised in 1881 when political cartoonist Thomas Nest drew St Nicholas as the iconic jolly man dressed in red with a big white beard, which is an image that stood the test of time. And last but not least, my favourite part of Christmas, the Christmas Day feast. While this tradition goes all the way back to the Middle Ages in Britain and even further back in other regions, the Victorians popularised certain aspects of food at Christmas. Mince pies can be traced back to the Tudor era, but they did actually used to be made with mincemeat, hence the name. It was under the Victorians that the recipe was revolutionised and changed to include a sweet mixture of fruits, spices and suet, which became a very popular form of the pie that we recognise today. Even the Christmas Day turkey became popular under the Victorians, with most people before either having beef or goose as the centrepiece of the Christmas Day dinner. The royal family began having turkey instead, and the aristocracy and wealthier families in Britain followed suit, with eventually the tradition making its way down to the commoners, and by the end of the 1800s, a Christmas dinner was not complete without a turkey in the middle of the table. Now, of course, you can't talk about Christmas in the Victorian age without talking about Charles Dickens and his classic Christmas novel, A Christmas Carol. The underlying theme in the book of charity and goodwill towards the rest of humanity struck a powerful chord with the society in Great Britain and saw it become a key theme to the spirit of Christmas that we recognise today. Not to mention, A Christmas Carol has become one of the most famous and well-known Christmas stories in history and is seen to typify the Victorian experience of the festive season, with many different adaptations being created for film and television, including my favourite, The Muppets Christmas Carol. In short, while the Victorian family didn't exactly invent every part of the Christmas tradition that we celebrate today, they definitely popularised it. Back in that era, the royal family were practically the only celebrities around, and when they began doing something, it became fashionable. And when these traditions became normal place in Victorian society, they seem to have gone all the way to the modern day and have gone on to shape the Christmas holidays around the world that we recognise today. And if the Victorians didn't have this kind of influence over British society, it might be very well the case that we'd be wishing each other a happy Saturnalia. If you enjoyed my video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel where I'll be making more content like this. I really appreciate you watching and look forward to seeing you again next time.